Okay, so first off, what do Resident Evil fans, what can they expect from the new movie?
うーんと、おそらく、僕は実はこう。
First of all, I have to be very honest with you. I have no idea what the story of Resident Evil 6 is about. But what I think our CGI, animation films do is, supplement what happens in between the video games. So, for example, after Resident Evil 4 came our previous film, Resident Evil Degeneration. Then came Resident Evil 5, the video game. And then comes Resident Evil Damnation, to be followed by Resident Evil 6. So, people who've played Resident Evil 5 might be saying, whatever happened to those characters after Resident Evil 5? So I think our film will be able to show people what exactly is happening after Resident Evil 5 and then to lead into Resident Evil 6, which is to come.
So Leon Kennedy was the star of Degeneration, is the star of Damnation. If they end up doing the next movie, might there be another star from the Resident Evil franchise other than Leon?
レオンは
Obviously I've worked on 2 films with Leon, so he's a character I'm very familiar with. But, Chris Redfield is an attractive character, so, it might be cool to work with him.
Were you a fan of the Resident Evil game franchise before getting involved with these movies?
ええ、
As a young kid, I never played video games. I never owned any of the systems. But when Resident Evil 1 came out, I've always been a zombie fan. And when I saw this game, in which you can play a game in this, Dawn of the Dead kind of setting, I was like, I've definitely got to buy this. So I went out and bought the first PlayStation and the video game, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And since then, I've been a big fan of the franchise.
So in Resident Evil Degeneration, there were scenes from the game Resident Evil 2 that they sort of re-showed. Is there going to be any sort of flashbacks from the other games like Resident Evil 4 in Damnation?
残念ながら回想シーンはないです。
Unfortunately, we do not have any recollections of scenes from previous games in Damnation. However, this is something I said at the panel yesterday, is that in Degeneration, Leon was too cool of a character and this very experienced guy. And what we wanted to do is sort of go back to the basics where Leon himself might have to lose his cool to get things done. That's why we've thrown in a lot of lines that you actually hear in the video games, where he has his cool lines, sometimes cheesy, but some of those lines. So we made sure that Leon is Leon as everyone expects.
Degeneration felt a lot like the game Resident Evil 2, where there was a kind of more zombie swarm, a lot of zombies on Leon at once. In the opening of the new movie, he feels very isolated, a lot more like Resident Evil 4. Is this how the movie is going to progress, more isolated like Resident Evil 4?
I wouldn't say that the story of Damnation is similar to or follows the pattern of Resident Evil 4, but there are things that happen in Resident Evil 4, like BOWs, starting from Resident Evil 4 on, have evolved and changed and sort of gone non-zombie in a way. So I think you'll be seeing some of that in our film.
What is your favorite of the Resident Evil monsters?
Every time we have discussions on how we want to develop the story for the film, I always say, I want the hunter. But everyone else says, nah.
Are there any other characters from the game that you would particularly like to see, any of the smaller characters from the game, or ones like Rebecca or Barry that you would like to include in future movies?
結構
there are many characters in the Resident Evil games that I like, but most of them are dead right now. So it's really hard to think of any one character. And after a lot of thinking I've just done, maybe what's going on with Ashley? It might be interesting to see Ashley.
またなんか話がややこしくなるんじゃないかなと。レオンをめぐる。
But if we introduce Ashley back again, but Leon with all the ladies, it could be very confusing.
Why did you guys decide to put Leon in a war zone for this movie?
I myself am a fan of military stuff, and Resident Evil Degeneration was more special ops, and it's solving something that happened not in a war zone. So since I'm a military fan, I wanted to do something that's more war related and sort of also introduce some political elements. That's why we chose war as a setting. And the first BOWs appeared in a small town in America. But as these BOWs proliferate, we thought that they'll end up being used in, in wars as weapons. So that was our speculation.
How has your experience in special effects helped you to direct the CGI films?
スペシャルエフェクツ
when I worked on special effects in Japan, when I started many years ago, it was all physical effects where you actually use crackers and little explosives and stuff. But then people of my generation have actually started working on that, but have also experienced working on visual effects, the merging of the physical effects and like CGI. So I've been working on CGI effects for the past 10-15 years. So I think since I've experienced both, it was actually easy for me to work on CGI stuff. And obviously, the guys on the team right now work on like explosions using CGI. But the thing is, I've seen more explosions, like physical explosions. So I actually go into like the most minor details, and I'll tell them that's not how an explosion looks like. And I actually say an explosion should look like this and like that, and I just give them all these details to work on.
So we're at Comic-Con. Do you have a favorite superhero?
僕自身が
I'm exactly not the most handsome person on earth, so I don't really go for like the cool Superman looking type. I sort of like dig Batman or Spider-Man who sort of have the darkness within. And I also love, as a child, watched the Hulk TV series. I'm definitely sort of like that, the macho, the bulkier kind of character. Even as a child, I wanted to shoot my own Hulk film.
At the panel yesterday, you mentioned that the theatrical release in Japan would be in 3D. Do you know if there will be a 3D Blu-ray available?
おそらくは
as for the American market, I'm not really sure what will be happening, but I think there will be a 3D Blu-ray, and I hope so personally. And as you know, it'll go theatrical in Japan, hopefully even in a very limited way. If it could be theatrical in the United States, I'd be very happy.
You worked on the special effects for the movie Gantz that was based on the manga. Are there any mangas that you love?
すごいライバルのこと言いそうになっちゃった。まあいいや、やめとこうこれは。
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of manga, and my personal favorite is the author or manga artist Shotaro Ishimori, who's changed his name to Ishinomori. Like he's worked on Kamen Rider and stuff. And like the most favorite manga of his collection for me is Cyborg 009009, that's what it's called. And the thing is, it's gonna be turned into a film in Japan, and unfortunately, it's not me working on the film, so I'm a little disappointed. It's someone else working on it.
Well, now it's time to meet with AnnaMay. It's safe to say we'll have some fun today on Geek World Radio.
監督の神谷誠です。ギークワールドよろしくお願いします。